Would you like to know about a teen who trained in a harsh environment, takes down pros on the battlefield, and is suddenly asked to live an ordinary high school life? Well, that's what goes for Ijin Yu, who does his best to blend in his new life. The story starts with a captured soldier apologizing to the professor for having things turned out badly. However, the professor says that he's the one who should be sorry for putting him and his men in this dangerous situation. Major Kang thinks that this mission would have succeeded if the informant hadn't turned against them. His men are highly trained soldiers and he doesn't want any of them to die. All of this was a trap from the beginning. Suddenly, a person opens the door and throws in another soldier. He's badly injured and Kang asks if he's all right. Kang jumps up and starts bad-mouthing the man. The terrorist speaks a foreign language and smacks Kang on his head with his weapon. He laughs at his stupid arrogance and closes the door. Kang curses his fate as they are no better than corpses. Kim asks if he's all right, and to this Kang replies that he's fine. He inquires about how the rest of his men are doing. He doesn't know, but they were all taken somewhere. However, their faces turn pale on hearing footsteps approaching the door. Another man comes in to check on them and Kang asks the reason for checking them again. However, the terrorist is already killed by someone. The rescuer asks in Korean if he's Major Kang. Kang asks about his identity. Although he spoke Korean, he isn't fluent in it. He tells the prisoners that he's here to rescue them, and that they should follow him. As they make their way through the corridor, they see corpses of terrorists lying on the ground. Kang asks his division and how many troops have been deployed. But the rescuer can't tell him who he works for, and as for the troops deployed, he came here alone. Kang can't believe that he knocked all these men by himself while being undetected. Suddenly, a door opens and a terrorist comes out. Kang notices that there are two terrorists and believes they won't be able to get out quietly. While Kang prepares his weapon, the rescuer leaps forward. He disarms the man in front and punches him at a vital point. On seeing the intruders, the second terrorist readies his gun, but the rescuer, with insane reflexes, throws his knife and it strikes a terrorist's heart. The rescuer stands tall after defeating the men. Kang is amazed to see him disarm two men without even reaching for his gun. The rescuer tells them to pick up the pace. He will take care of the enemy as they continue and advises them not to use their rifle unless it's necessary. Kang just agrees with his condition. Soon after, the rescuer kills two enemies, runs forward, and kills another one. They keep running forward, and they hear multiple hostiles coming from the corner. Kang gets ready for the encounter as this time he needs to help him, but the rescuer keeps moving forward. His bizarre actions confuse Kang, as they should think calmly and deeply in such situations. Three terrorists talk in the hallway, and the rescuer slides down, prepares his gun, and dispatches all three of them. He reloads his weapon in style and proceeds further. When Kang comes into the hallway, he remains stunned at seeing the work of a true beast. However, he considers his tactics to be reckless for a military soldier. They come outside and the rescuer peeks from the wall. He signals his companion to wait a minute here. Kang asks the reason for stopping here, but on seeing himself panting heavily and his teammates gasping desperately, he understands the situation. Kang failed to account for the weak state of his teammates, but he kept calculating this whole time. He notices his black eyes and his somewhat decent Korean accent, so he asks if he too is a Korean. However, the rescuer doesn't reply to his question. He tells them to move. They start running through the grass fields and they meet his other team members. Kang is happy to see them alive and asks how they all got here. His teammate replies that the masked person got them out and now he brought you as well. The rescuer tells them to head southwest and they will meet someone there. He has done his mission and will leave from here separately. Just like Kang thought, he's a mercenary. Before going, Kang reaches out for a handshake. Even though it's just another job for him, Kang thanks him for rescuing him and his men. The rescuer thinks about going for the handshake, but he senses a mortar being fired away from the distance. He tells everyone to get down. The mortar explodes close to them and Kang gets injured from the mortar shell. He can't hear anything and thinks if his men are safe. When the dust clears, he is relieved to see his man unharmed. Suddenly he hears a gunshot. A person from the mortar team gets killed. Kang notices the rescuer still fighting back by himself. But what surprises Kang is that he's just a kid. Fast forward to 6 months later, we see students going to school. A teacher introduces a new student and all the girls compliment his looks. The student introduces himself as Ijin Yu. At the same time, a girl thinks about her brother being in his homeroom class. A girl tells others about the cutest guy she saw in the office. He's a transfer student and a third year too. The girl ponders that perhaps they are talking about her brother. She thought that her brother died in the plane crash with her parents, but she never dreamed that he would return after 10 years. When they met him, Grandpa began crying after seeing him. His grandpa hugs him and he notices his stir. He smiles at her and asks if her name is Daeyeon. While she's daydreaming in class, some bullies come to her seat. The bully tells her to hand over her gym uniform later. Daeyeon replies that she brought it, but what will she wear if she gives her uniform to her? She laughs at her and smacks her head. She tells her that the problem is hers and believes she has been too kind to her recently. She will give her a beatdown in front of everybody if she complains next time. As for Daeyeon's classmates, they try to ignore her. In the classroom, the teacher tells about Ijin living overseas for a long time, so she asks everyone to be cooperative with him. The girls look at him admiringly while some see him as a competitor. The teacher tells him to take the empty seat in the back. While Ijin walks to his seat, this student gets irritated with the newcomer. He thinks about tripping him in front of the whole class and making him feel embarrassed. When Ijin comes close, he slides his feet out, but Ijin notices it and stops. He thought that he timed it perfectly, but this bastard evaded it. The student asks what he's looking at, but Ijin stares at the student's soul. He remembers Major Kang's words that once he's in Korea he should stay away from fights. Ijin replies that he already knows about that and Kang gets happy. Ijin told him that he wouldn't enter any combat situation without having enough intel about the surroundings. A rash decision could potentially cost him his life, and that would be a rookie mistake. He tells Kang about how he survived many battlefields over the past 10 years because he's a pro. Kang tells him to stop blabbering about battles. He tells him not to fight because he'll demolish any poor kid in the school. So, agreeing to Kang's advice, he doesn't harm the student. The teacher asks if there's something wrong, but Ijin smiles and says it's nothing. He soon sits in his seat and the teacher asks Young to get him ready for the first class. The teacher leaves and Young introduces himself to Ijin. He tells Ijin not to be too nervous when Jae tried to trip him. He advises Ijin to be cautious around Jae and Hyuk. He also tells him that the first class will be on maths. Young finds Ijin to be a nice guy. He tells Ijin to ask anything he wants and Young will try his best to answer. The teacher enters the classroom and tells the student to open page 47. The teacher starts teaching and Ijin looks around closely. He sees that Young is studying meticulously, some are sleeping, and some are chatting and texting. He hears whistle sounds outside and sees students playing. Compared to his previous life, when he had to go on missions despite the circumstances, he had to cross dirty marshland to ambush the enemy. He was trained like hell by the instructors and was also given specialized weapon training. Compared to that, he finds his new life to be peaceful. The classes got over and students go home. Daeyeon sees Ijin waiting for her at the gate. She asks if he's waiting for her and Ijin replies that he wants to walk back home with her if she doesn't have other plans. She nervously looks at her side and says she doesn't have other plans. So Ijin says let's go home together. Both of them walk without saying anything. Ijin breaks the silence by asking Daeyeon if she feels awkward. He tells her not to feel bad about it as this feeling is weird for him too. He was 9 years old when the plane crashed, so he doesn't remember much about her and Grandpa. But for her, it must have been weirder as she was 7 years old. While walking on the street, Daeyeon hears her school bullies eating at the local shop. The bully notices Daeyeon and she panics on seeing her. The boy asks about who she is and she replies that her boss, Ijin, hates her. She mocks her, asking if she's walking home with her boyfriend. Daeyeon nervously replies that he is her brother. To this, the girl didn't expect to see her having a brother. Ijin asks if she is her friend and Daeyeon replies that yes, she's a friend from her class. The girl mocks her again on being called a friend of a loser. While the girl speaks more ill of Daeyeon, Ijin stares at them. This infuriates the bully who asks why her brother is looking at them like that. He warns them to be in limits if they don't want to get hurt. The other bully doesn't like Ijin's attitude. The bully gets up from his seat and goes to teach a lesson to Ijin. While he approaches Ijin, he gestures to his sister to get behind. The bully speaks to his face, warning him not to act like a tough bastard in front of his sister. Ijin thinks that he's leaving himself too wide open for someone trying to start a fight. Plus, he's closing on him without a second thought. He's leaving all his vital points open for attack and doesn't have a weapon either, so Ijin can't understand him being so rash and exposed. He remembers Kang's words not to fight. So he thinks about just walking away, but the bully grabs his shirt and tries to attack him. Suddenly, Daeyeon interrupts their fight and apologizes. She says that her brother lived overseas for most of his life, so he's not used to the customs of Korea. The bully replies that he doesn't care about her brother living overseas, that's not his problem. Ijin looks at Daeyeon's terrified side, which he never witnessed before. He twists the bully's hands and he cries in pain. He walks over to Daeyeon and with a reassuring smile, he tells her to wait for a minute. He covers her face with his coat. The bully tries to punch Ijin, but he elbows the bully in the face. He falls on the furniture behind and hits his head. Seeing this, the girl gets scared and the second bully stands up. Ijin thinks that his promise to Kang is broken now, so he might as well finish what he started. The scene then shifts to military people training. Major Kang is the instructor and Kim asks if Ijin will be doing all right on his first day of school. Kang trained him for 6 months but can't help worrying. Ijin lived in such a harsh place since he was 9. Kim hopes that he adjusts well at home. Kang feels proud of giving him lessons on life in Korea, so he must be doing well. No doubt about that, he is smacking bullies on the first day of school. The bully got fainted from Ijin's one punch. Ijin looks at the terrified students and closes the distance within an instant. He smacks the second bully and sends him flying. Such incredible strength terrifies the girl. Ijin stares at her, giving a vibe that he would have beaten her if she was a boy. Daeyeon takes off the coat from her face and sees the bullies knocked down. Ijin walks past the girl while she trembles in fear. Ijin apologizes to Daeyeon if he made her worried. He suggests eating snacks from the store nearby. While stroking his neck, he asks if they should go back home. Daeyeon hands him his coat and he thanks her. The girl remains stunned. She couldn't understand how he is the same guy who stared at her a minute ago. Before leaving, Daeyeon tells her that she'll see her later, followed by Ijin giving her a warning with his stare. This makes her cower in fear. While walking, Daeyeon asks if he did that to those guys earlier. Ijin replies that yeah, he did that. However, Daeyeon finds it strange as he doesn't seem like the type to pick fights. She tells him that it's rude to stare at people in Korea like he did earlier. Doing it will get him into uncomfortable situations. Ijin also tells her that staring at someone could be risky, but that depends on the opponent he faces. Daeyeon asks if that's the case, then why did he stare at them? He thought that those people were causing her trouble, so he couldn't back down. This makes Daeyeon happy from within, and Ijin asks if he said something wrong. At home, his grandpa is worried about Ijin doing dishes and asks him to rest and eat fruits. Ijin reassures him that he will do the dishes and he can relax. Grandpa gives up on insisting and asks if the dinner was good. Although he is not much of a cook, he tried his best. Ijin assures him that every meal he eats is very delicious. Grandpa feels happy to hear the compliment. Daeyeon thinks that Grandpa took cooking classes after he knew that Ijin would be returning. Grandpa asks Daeyeon about the dinner and she replies that it was wonderful. He then asks Ijin about his first day of school if something interesting happened. Ijin stops washing dishes and glances at Daeyeon. He decides not to tell the incident and says it was all good. Grandpa finds it pleasant and they go to sleep. Ijin lies on his bed while thinking about the moment he met Grandpa. He said that it doesn't matter if he can't remember much of his childhood, what matters is he returned alive. He felt warm when they all ate together. He wonders if that's what family is like. In his sleep, he dreams of the plane crash. His parents helped him put on the oxygen mask and they embraced for landing. He jumps up suddenly from his dreams and pants heavily. He sees the clock and remembers he's at home. He comes out and sees Daeyeon cooking breakfast for him. Ijin asks about Grandpa's whereabouts and she replies that he went out for work. Since he took some time off to be at home when you came, so he left early today. She is also going to the school early and tells him to have breakfast on the table. He thanks her and looks at how much she cooked for him. At the school, Ijin asks if the transfer student is Daeyeon's brother. She replies that he is. Yesterday, he knocked out both boys in a single punch. She thinks that they should stop picking on Daeyeon. The stares in her brother's creeps her out, but she thinks everything will be fine as Ijin's brother runs this school. At the stairways, someone smacks Daeyeon from behind. Ijin tells her not to overreact and she should follow her. When Daeyeon declines her order, she laughs at her gaining confidence because of her brother. She tells her to follow her unless she wants to get beaten in front of everyone. They take her to the recycling station and Ijin kicks Daeyeon, sending her into the trash. When Daeyeon asks the reason for such actions, Ijin replies that she lifted her finger against her minions. She thinks that her brother is a strong bastard and this is the reason why she's acting up now. She tells her that her brother is in for hell. Her brother will be ganging up on Ijin. On hearing her brother's name, Daeyeon screams at her. However, Ijin slaps her and tells her to shut up. Daeyeon thinks that because of her, Ijin will be in trouble. She stands up and starts running to Ijin's class. In the classroom, students whisper about delinquents entering their classroom. Ijin looks at the approaching bullies and finds one of them to be from yesterday. But suddenly, Daeyeon enters the classroom and screams for Ijin while panting heavily. Ijin looks surprised at seeing her condition. She has bruises on her cheeks and her clothes are dirty. The boy says that Ijin's sister looks very worried about him while his sister only nags him. The scene shifts to the moment before the delinquents arrive. Everything is calm and students are gossiping. Jae throws a rubber at Young which hits him in the head. He tells Hyuk how he hit the nerd twice in a row. Hyuk asks a student to hand him over his eraser. When he gets the eraser, he throws it at full speed and it hits hard on Young's head. He feels happy about making a better shot than Jae, but he calls it a lousy shot. Thinking about not being outdone, Jae throws his eraser at Young, but it hits Ijin. The rubber only tingles him and he sits on his seat. Both of them remain shocked at seeing it. Jae says that Ijin is getting on his nerves and Hyuk suggests talking some sense to him after school. Jae agrees and smiles maliciously. Ijin, while removing his coat, asks if he's fine. Young replies that he's good, but Ijin can see that he isn't. Young asks if he's free after school today. If he is, then they can hang out near the school and he can show him around. Ijin replies that he isn't free and has to walk home with his sister. Young asks if she too was transferred here with him, but Ijin says that she was attending here before he came. Young inquires about her name and Ijin says it's Ijin Yu. He asks if his sister is in her first year and Ijin replies yes, but how does he know her? Young explains that his sister is not having the best time at school these days. Ijin asks him to elaborate more. His sister has been famous since middle school. She's smart and pretty, and a lot of guys liked her. However, a girl got jealous and started bullying her at school. So, do you mean she got bullied and others let it happen? Well, the thing is that girl's brother, Jisoo, is one of the worst thugs in our school. Things got worse for Daeyeon in high school because they are now in the same class. It's so bad that everyone is amazed to see her still coming to school. So, the only reason behind the bullying is because that girl liked a boy who happened to like Daeyeon. Young says that everything starts with a stupid reason behind it. People like them don't need a reason to pick someone. Ijin recalls that Grandpa asked her if she's doing well in school. She replied that everything was good and she's doing fine. This makes Grandpa happy. He only heard good things from her teachers. That also made Ijin happy. Young asks if he's alright and Ijin thanks him for the info. He says that everyone knows about this and hopes he doesn't worry much. After their conversation, a bully kicks the door and many boys enter the room. Jake and Hyuk inquire about the reason for coming here. Jisoo tells them he's here to take care of some business. They think that taking down other bullies is easy, but Jisoo is a different breed. One boy points toward Ijin and Ji scolds them for getting beaten by that scrawny boy, but the boy says he caught them off guard. He scratches his ears and thinks that he has to waste time on such petty things. He tells Ijin to come over to him. Ijin stands up and Jake thinks that he's done for. Ijin asks if he's Jisoo Kim. He doesn't reply and orders his minion to beat him. This was the moment when Daeyeon came in. Ijin follows her from behind and scolds her for making them run through half the school. Daeyeon sees Ijin surrounded by bullies. With tears filled in her eyes, she apologizes for getting him dragged into this. Ijin tells her to stop being a drama queen. Ijin tells her that she shouldn't be sorry for this. He smacks a bully on the head and others get terrified. He says that they should be the ones to apologize, not her. Another bully runs at him with fists, but Ijin sidesteps and strikes his vital point, rendering him immobilized. He goes to the other bully. When he tries to hit him, Ijin deals a blow to his guts. Much to the astonishment of Jisoo, all his boys have been beaten in a few seconds. Everyone in the classroom, including Jake, Ijin, and Daeyeon, is surprised. He heard that his sister was having a hard time thanks to him. Jisoo, still trying to act confident, says that he's not just some pushover. Ijin doesn't reply to his question. This infuriates Jisoo and he tries to kick him, but Ijin blocks his attack with his hands. He tries attacking him from a different direction, but Ijin blocks that as well. Ijin had enough and he grabs Jisoo's legs. He punches him hard and sends him to the ground. With his nose bleeding, he tries to look up. He sees Ijin staring coldly at him. He kicks him in the face and finishes him off. All the bullies got wiped out by a single student and everyone is astonished. On witnessing Jisoo knocked in one punch, Jake and Hyuk get frightened. Daeyeon covers her mouth in awe and Ijin can't believe Jisoo was defeated. Ijin approaches them and they freeze in fear. Ijin stares at them wanting to punish them as well. Ijin hopes that he will not smack her as well. Daeyeon stops her brother from going too far, but he says that these people have been bullying her all this time. Isn't that what they did to her today as well? Daeyeon can't understand how he knew she was bullied today. She thinks that the reason he is fighting is because of her. With a calming tone, she says she's fine now and requests him to stop. Ijin doesn't go any further when she persists. He says that he will walk her back to the classroom and Daeyeon closely follows him. The students talk about Jisoo's gang getting whooped by Ijin. Jaek thinks that the new kid is pretty hardcore at fighting. He considers himself lucky as he thought about teaching Ijin a lesson earlier. Ijin stands at the door with the boys lying on the floor. In the hallway, Daeyeon says how surprised she was when he fought well. He says that he just happens to be good at fighting. She apologizes again for getting him dragged into this mess. He had to fight yesterday because of her and now this happened. He tells her not to worry much as this is his role to look after her little sister. Back where he used to live, everyone had their own interest at heart. They never cared about what happened to others as long as they didn't suffer. But even those people would act differently sometimes, and that was only when their own families were involved. He remembers that on the battlefield he faced a similar situation. That made him wonder what family was and why it was so important. Daeyeon says that he barely remembers her and Grandpa. He says that it's true he doesn't remember much from back then. But it doesn't change the fact they are family. Both of them stand in the hallway and the girls gossip about Ijin. She tells him that she's fine and he should go back to his class. He talks about walking her to the class, but she says that he already did. She waves at him and slips into her classroom. Ijin smiles at her innocence and returns to his class. When he enters the class, everyone fixes their gaze on him. Jake and Hyuk look at Ijin in a new light, complimenting his extraordinary fighting skills. He breathes a sigh of relief and sits on his next. Young also compliments him, saying that he looked awesome. On the other hand, Jisoo and his thugs are sitting in a room. He thinks that there's something different about him. He doesn't fight like a typical school thug. Ijin asks if he's going to sit ducks here. He caught them off guard, but he can take revenge later. She makes fun of them getting beaten by one dude and being demoralized. Jisoo tells her to shut up. If she thinks it's so easy, then she should fight him herself. She says that he's the one who lost and now he's cussing her for no reason. He asks if he has to repeat himself and tells her to get lost. She slams the door and leaves the room. She thinks that those losers couldn't handle a single guy. She clenches her teeth in anger and enters her classroom. She sees Daeyeon sitting and calls her a lucky girl. She can now come to the school without a care in the world, and if anything happens, she could run up to her brother. Daeyeon doesn't respond to her, and this only angers her more. She remembers Ijin's stare and thinks that we'll have to let her do whatever she wants. However, she plans on taking revenge one way or another. The classes got over and everyone was going home. Daeyeon thinks about today's incident. Ijin wiped out the bullies troubling her. Before Ijin came, Ijin made her bring snacks from the canteen and still bullied her. She hopes they won't hurt her anymore. She walks past her brother and he asks if something's on her mind. This startles her and he says that he called her a few times. She apologizes for not hearing him and asks why and how long he was waiting. He says not for long and was waiting as he doesn't know the way back home. She wants to buy some groceries from the store and Ijin agrees. She says Grandpa gets hungry when he comes home late and lights up when dinner is ready. Behind them, Ijin gets angry about seeing that little girl having a good time and plans to ruin it. At the store, Daeyeon picks up an onion pack from the shelf. She ponders about which one to buy. While they are shopping, the girls look at Ijin. To them, he looks hot and wonders which school he is from. Daeyeon thinks that he's pretty popular at school and stands out outside as well. She asks if he has a girlfriend overseas. Ijin doesn't know what girlfriend means, so she explains that a girlfriend means a girl that he was dating. He replies he doesn't have one. She thinks that he's popular with girls in school, so she thought he might have one. However, he was busy and didn't have time for it. He asks if she has a boyfriend, and this startles her. She says she doesn't have one as she was busy too. At home, Ijin's grandpa gifts him a Samsung phone. He talks about all the kids having one these days, so he thought about buying one for him. Daeyeon notices that it's the latest model and would have cost a lot. Grandpa tells him that he's already saved his and hers phone number. He hopes that it's okay if he opened the box earlier to save their numbers, and Ijin assures him that it's fine. Grandpa tells Daeyeon not to be upset as he couldn't give her a new phone. He'll buy her one soon, but she declines his request as her phone is good. Ijin finds pleasure in receiving a gift and sharing a good time. At night, Ijin uses his new phone while lying on the bed. On the other side, Kang gets a notification and wonders who's texting him this late. The message is from Ijin and he asks him to contact this number from now on. He wonders if Ijin got a new phone. Kim asks if gave him a phone. Kang replies that he bought him the most expensive one from the store. Kim replies that maybe he wanted a particular brand though. In the morning, Ijin comes out of the shower and sees Daeyeon rushing to her school. He asks if she's leaving early again, but she says that she's late. She tells him to leave the dishes in the sink once he's done. Outside, she's running to her school. She believes she'll make it on time. Making more soup took longer than she expected, but Grandpa liked it. She's glad she could do something nice for Grandpa. Suddenly, someone kicked her while she was passing. The masked girls tell her to look where she's going as she almost bumped into her. When Daeyeon apologizes, she slaps her instead. A girl suggests taking her to the karaoke to stress a little bit, and the two agree. The girl tells her to come with them. Daeyeon recognizes the voices of Huijin. After having a good time at karaoke, the masked girl leaves. The owner thinks that kids these days have good lungs as they were screaming through all the songs. When he opens the door, he sees a girl lying on the floor. He inquires about her well-being, but Daeyeon slowly stands up and starts repacking her bag. The owner tells her to stay put and he'll call an ambulance for her. She says she's fine and there's no need for that. In the classroom, the teacher asks if anybody has seen Daeyeon. Students don't know about it, and the teacher wonders that she doesn't skip classes without informing her before. Huijin's friend asks if they will be all right, and she tells her not to worry. She tells her to act like Daeyeon missing school has nothing to do with them, and her friend agrees to it. After the school, Ijin waits for her sister. Almost everyone had left, but still, he didn't see her. This makes him wonder what's taking her so long. He dials her number thinking if she already left for home. At home, Daeyeon had tucked herself in the blanket. The phone rings beside her, but she doesn't pick it up. Soon after, Ijin reaches home and sees that Daeyeon is already here. He drops his backpack and knocks at her room. She doesn't come out and asks if he was waiting for her. He replies that he waited and she didn't answer the phone as well. She replies that she was fast asleep. However, he finds her voice trembling. He asks if she could let him in for a second, but she refuses as she's feeling unwell. He asks if she has a fever. She replies that it's only mild and will go after some sleep. He agrees to it and tells her to let him know if she needs anything. He thinks about getting her some medicine. But when he sees blood on her shoes, he halts and wonders what happened. He immediately goes to her with a first aid kit and tends to her wounds. He asks if it's really bad. She replies that it stings a little, and he tells her to take care of herself. She explains that she fell down the stairs while trying to dodge a bicycle. But Ijin says it looks as if she ran into a bike. He asks again if she wants to visit a doctor. She replies she's fine, but deep down she knows if she went to the hospital, they will find out these bruises are from a fight. Earlier in the principal's office, Daeyeon complained about Huijin beating her. However, Huijin accuses her of making false claims. She replies that although her face was covered with a hat and mask, she heard her voice. Plus, she bullies at her school, so it's very natural for her to do this. Huijin argues that she didn't see the culprit's face, and yet she's accusing her. The principal also asks if she saw the face of that person. Daeyeon tries her best to explain that the culprit is Huijin, but no one believes her. Huijin's mother bursts at her, reprimanding her for calling the police and treating her daughter like a criminal. The principal asks her to calm down, but she's in no mood for that. Daeyeon can't understand why no one believes her. The mother scolds her for pulling dirty tricks and tells her to apologize immediately. When Daeyeon refuses, she tells her to bring her parents. She doesn't want to worry her grandpa and cries upon hearing it. She knows it's the same situation again since she doesn't have any proof. Ijin touches her head asking if she's okay now. Although her bones don't seem to be broken, but her bruises are bad and will hurt for a few days. She got surprised about how he bandaged without her noticing him, and that too perfectly. She hopes that Grandpa doesn't get too upset over this as he has a weak heart. When Ijin inquires further, She tells him about the pills he takes daily. He assures her that Grandpa won't worry and she should get some sleep. Before he leaves, she thanks him and he smiles at her. After he left, she hoped that she did right by not telling him. There's nothing teenagers like them could do about it. Outside the room, Ijin boils with anger. The scene shifts to Jisoo and his minions talking in a bar. His friend tells him how the news of them being beaten up by a single dude is all over the school. He asks about what his next move is. He explains that the only reason they lost is that they underestimated that bastard. They could have taken him head-on if they had planned ahead. One says about teaching him a lesson. Another says about teaming up and beating him. Jisoo thinks that he isn't an easy target, but they can't let this go. He clenches his drink and says that going one-on-one isn't their style. He says that tomorrow they will jump at him with everything. Suddenly Huijin calls him, and he picks it up. She asks why they are loafing around the club. He asks her the reason for calling him, and if there's none, he'll hang up. She explains how she roughed up that little Daeyeon. After all, she needs to know her limits. Jisoo laughs and finds her sister amusing. He tells her about giving Ijin a lesson tomorrow. While they are talking, Ijin walks into the club. Jisoo's friend gets surprised to see that bastard here. He has come for revenge and will settle the score once for and all. Jisoo thinks about why he is walking on their turf. He exclaims about how much he wants a rematch with him. Ijin, without saying a word, smacks the nearest bully. He punches another one coming at him. Jisoo orders everyone to attack and they charge at him. He kicks the first one, grabs the collar of the second, and throws him. One tries to ambush from behind but gets taken care of. In the end, he defeated everyone single-handedly. Jisoo thinks about where he came from and how his boys got beaten. Ijin asks if he really has to spell it out for him. He told him to leave his sister alone. Jisoo thinks that ganging up on him doesn't work. He boxed them in by knocking the first one, and it only took him a few seconds to use the structure of the room. Ijin asks what his sister ever did to them. While reaching for the glass, he explains he doesn't know anything about it. He throws the glass at him, but he dodges it. Next, he grabs a wine bottle and attacks him. But once again, Ijin blocks his attack and sends him backward with a punch. He is panting and wonders how that bastard isn't tired yet. He asks why they harass a helpless girl. Jisoo doesn't reply and breaks the bottle. He tells him to die, but Ijin had it enough. He disarms him, grabs his throat, and pins him to the ground. Jisoo struggles desperately but is unable to get out of his clutches. He gives Jisoo a final warning, telling him that he'll be back if he ever hears a rumor about her sister. He also advises her to keep her sister in check. If his sister ever touches his, then he'll be back for him again. Ijin has almost choked him and he can't breathe. He warns him that the next time he won't hold back. Ijin releases him and he coughs heavily. Everyone at the club looks at him astonishingly. At the same time, Ijin rushes to the club as the call got interrupted. She has a bad feeling about this. When she reaches the club, she sees Ijin coming out. This startles her and thinks about her next action. She asks him not to get any closer. As he approaches her, she starts getting back. Her feet slip and she falls to the ground. Suddenly, Ijin gets a call from Grandpa. While staring at them, he tells him that he's on his way. He leaves the club and both remain horrified. She gets more terrified when she goes inside the club. Jisoo and the boys are beaten badly. She inquires if they got beaten by him again. Jisoo tells her to leave Ijin's sister alone. She gets annoyed by him and asks why she shouldn't toy with her. Jisoo makes his voice tense and tells her to leave that girl alone. She asks if he's afraid of that bastard. He asks her to just answer his question. When she refuses, he screams at her. He tells her if she even goes near that girl, he'll personally deal with her. This statement frightens her even more. While walking home, Ijin sees his grandpa outside the house. He takes him to the park and apologizes for suddenly calling him. However, Ijin assures him that it's all right. He came to know that Daeyeon got injured and he treated her injuries. She keeps saying that she fell down the stairs, but he believes it's something more serious. He struggled to raise Daeyeon on his own. He doesn't have any idea how to raise a young girl. He was always working to put food on the table and wasn't able to get her much. He's thankful for how far she has come. Looking back on all those years, she has given him more than he could give back. He lost everyone in that accident and Daeyeon was the only thing that kept him going. Now it breaks his heart to see her hurt. She won't tell him the reason behind it. Maybe he's just too old to understand it and she grew distant from him over time. Ijin tells him that although he hasn't been here for long, but he can tell how much he loves Daeyeon and how much she loves him back. Ijin's remarks are an eye-opener to Grandpa. He tells him not to worry much as he'll keep an eye out for her at school. Grandpa can't express it in words, but he feels happy to have him back. The scene shifts to the hospital and Jisoo is covered in bandages. His father expresses disappointment that he got into trouble again. He says he had it coming for running his damn shenanigans. The mother tells him to say something nicer as their son is hospitalized. She says that Jisoo isn't at fault but the kid who did this to him. She also tells him to look at Huijin's broken arm. The father is discontented with his two idiotic children. The mother tells him to rest and recover and leave the rest to them. When they have left, Jisoo asks her the reason for telling them. She only got him into more trouble by doing so. Plus, he looks like a child who ran to his parents after he got beat up. She explains she didn't have any other choice. He was hospitalized and her arm was broken. He asks how her arm broke. She recalls that it was her fault for tripping and injuring herself, but blames it on that bastard. She tells him to stay here and get better, while she makes sure that kid receives heavy punishment. The mother says that she spoke to Mr. Cha. The father asks her the reason for doing this. Getting him involved will make things more complicated. However, she can't wait long for the school to bring justice and wants to deal with him right away. The best the school could do is give that bastard a suspension or expulsion at best. Father tells her not to go around and asks Cha to handle petty matters. She says she knows about him. He's been handling his dirty work for years. She has already informed him in advance and he's up for it. Huijin hears their conversation and thinks that Mr. Cha is the scary gangster who works for his dad. It won't be long before that bastard will beg for mercy. The scene shifts to the nighttime. Cha is waiting at his car. He thinks how embarrassing it's to meddle in teenagers' affairs. He tells his boys to bring that child to him. He doesn't want to do this either but has to do it because of a phone call. He was stunned that the mother requested him to personally deal with that boy. She asked him to give that child 10 times more pain than their child suffered. Cha wonders if only he could ignore her, then he wouldn't be here. On the other hand, Ijin is sitting at his desk. He ponders if they will let go of things now. Suddenly he hears his grandpa's voice outside. The two men came marching into the house, demanding to talk with Ijin. Grandpa asks their reason for seeing him so late at night. Ijin steps out and says he'll be back soon. Both Grandpa and Daeyeon get worried for his safety. He reassures them that he knows these people and they only need to talk for a little while. The two men bring Ijin to their boss. He thinks who could it be this time and why they are after him. The boys tell the boss that they brought him. One explains that the kid caught on pretty quickly and came along quietly. Cha throws his cigarette and tells them to end this quickly. One man takes out a bat and instructs the other to hold the boy's arm. Cha thinks that this work will be done in no time and texts the mother. The man tells him they will do it nice and quick, but it will hurt like hell. They don't have any grudges against him, but they are running an errand for a child who got beaten by him recently. Ijin now understands that the kid he's referring to is Jisoo Yu. While Che searches for the number wildly, he notices that the child doesn't look scared at all. Also, there's no emotion on his face. Ijin grabs the bald man's hand, pulls him and elbows him. The other man tries to hit him with a bat, but he evades it. Cha can't believe that the kid is charging toward a swinging bat. Ijin locks the bat in his hands and delivers a punch. He deals with both men and Cha gets surprised at his skills. He thinks that this kid knows what he's doing. The bald man tries to grip him from behind, but he jabs him in the stomach and sends him to kiss the ground. Cha believes that this kid has a lot of experience in actual combat too. He says that he isn't some average high school kid. He never thought about fighting a teenager at his age. Ijin thinks that Che is full of weak points. Suddenly, Cha starts dealing multiple blows which Ijin evades perfectly. He sees an opening and closes in the gap, but Cha predicts him and punches him. He blocks it just in time and slides back. Cha didn't expect him to block that one. He sees his bruised hand and thinks he knew that he'll move in and waited for the right moment to strike. Cha expected that the punch would knock him out for good, and this makes him question his identity. He replies that he's just a high school student. Cha thinks that he doesn't fight like some sloppy teenager. He charges toward the opponent knowing he'll take damage, and that takes a certain level of experience and guts. But this kid goes right in for the kill without a second thought. Ijin gets ready and Shai considers that he's up for the next round. He attacks first, wanting to know what he's made of. Ijin blocks the first punch, blocks another one, sees an opening in the guts, and punches him there. He follows it up with a second punch on the head. Cha thinks that he's using attacks to round up after him. He gets angry with this little brute and uses his most powerful punch. However, Ijin blocks it and finishes him off with a 3-hit combo. He lies on the ground. thinking how he got his ass whopped by a mere kid. Those eyes seem to convey if this fight was a joke to him. He doesn't know from where this kid came, but those people messed with the wrong person. At the same time, the mother asks why Mr. Cha hasn't contacted them and suggests calling him. The father tells her to wait patiently and he will call when he's done. The phone rings and the mother asks to put him on speaker so she can listen. First of all, the father apologizes to Mr. Cha for burdening him with this ridiculous favor. Cha tells him that he should be the one to apologize, and this startles the father. He explains that his children messed with the wrong person and he was defeated. He gets shocked. Cha is their best fixer in the business, yet he lost to a high school kid. Suddenly, they hear the door creaking and they shift their gaze to it. Ijin has entered their turf and Cha says that the kid is more than just some average teenager. Outside, Ijin defeated countless men alone. Cha, while riding in the car, can't believe that the kid already got there. He is now more curious to know his real identity. Still, it doesn't change the fact that he got beaten by a kid. At the office, everyone is shocked to see Ijin there. The mother bashes out at him, saying he's the one who did this to her kids. The father, Inbei, tells her to calm down. He asks how he got in here. Ijin explains that he defeated the men blocking the entrance. Inbei can't believe that this kid beat Cha and all his security. But more than that, how did he know his location? Mother tells her that with such an attitude, he can't get away. She's reporting him for having her kids and security assaulted and breaking into this office as well. Huijin thinks that mom's right. No matter how good he's at fighting, he can't do anything once the police get involved. She says she's dialing the police and district attorney. He has no idea who he's dealing with. Ijin says that he has a pretty good idea. Her husband is a second-term assembly member now running for office. She asks if something like that would stop her. A kid like him doesn't know what it means. Huijin says it's over for him, while Ijin looks at them emotionless. The mother asks Prosecutor Choi to come to her husband's office. Suddenly, Ijin shows him the video of Daeyeon getting beaten. The voice in the video is of Huijin and this startles her. The video shows slapping and stomping Daeyeon. They demand her $500 by the end of the week, and it doesn't matter if she steals it or prostitute herself. The mother is speechless and tells Choi she'll call him later. Huijin asks how he got those videos. Before coming here, he had prepared all of this in advance and uploaded it to his laptop as well. Huijin explains that she has a good reason for doing this, but her dad tells her to shut up. Ijin says he has files involving Jisoo as well. For some reason, his children keep videos of their conquest. Some clips show kids being bullied and others show them extorting money and valuables from victims. The latest clip is of her sister getting assaulted at the karaoke. Mother dares how he threatens her, but he explains that he isn't the one who started this. Plus, her hollow threats are nothing compared to hiring a bunch of gangsters. He has footage of that as well. Father gets straight to the point. He asks if the reason he's doing this is because of Jisoo and Huijin assaulting her sister. Ijin says that as a parent he will take his children's side at all costs, and as a brother, he'll do whatever it takes to protect his sister. Father sighs and says that he'll pay for her treatment and offer a hefty sum to make amends. Ijin says that won't be necessary. The father asks about what he wants. Does he want his kids to apologize to his sister? He says that won't be necessary. An apology won't bring back the time she had to spend in pain. He wants his sister to never see Jisoo or Huijin ever again. Inbei agrees to his request. He'll get them transferred to an abroad school. Both women scream on hearing this. However, he tells them to quiet down. He asks if that would be enough. Ijin tells him to send them tomorrow. Huijin cries on hearing this. Before he leaves, Inbei requests him to hand over all the original videos he found. Ijin stares at him and Inbei thinks, how can those deadly eyes belong to a child? He asks if he takes him for a fool. He nervously apologizes for it, and Ijin leaves. He reaches home and finds his family worried for him. Grandpa asks if those people hurt him. Ijin smiles and says no. Grandpa says those people looked very dangerous. Daeyeon also says that something didn't feel right about them. He tells her to worry about getting herself better and asks how she's feeling. She replies, much better. He tells her that she'll never have to fall down the stairs again because he got rid of it all. She remains dumbfounded about what he means. On the next day of school, Ijin walks her to the classroom and leaves. Daeyeon enters the class and thinks she would have stayed home longer if Ijin and Grandpa weren't worried. Suddenly, a student informs everyone about Huijin leaving the school. She and her brother will be going abroad to study. They became happy that things would go back to normal. Daeyeon is most confused of all on hearing this. She remembered Ijin's words from last night about not falling down the stairs again. She immediately comes out of the classroom. She feels so emotional that words don't come out of her mouth. Ijin tells her that he'll see her later and she wipes her tears. At the club, the girls talk about Huijin moving overseas suddenly. Her friend was shocked when she heard it first. They don't understand why she's moving all of a sudden. Also, neither she nor Jisoo came to school today. The girl asks her classmate if she knows anything about it. However, she doesn't know and came to know it today when the teacher told everyone. She isn't picking up her calls or reading texts. They conclude that her moving is true after all. The girl hopes that her moving doesn't have to do anything with him. She calms herself and believes that her parents can't be influenced by a kid. Other girls talk about her being the fattest wallet in the group, and they will miss her for that. Suddenly, she enters the club. They are surprised to see her, especially her classmate. While sitting, she complains about how she barely snuck herself out. They inquire about the reason for suddenly moving overseas. She explains that it just happened and will be back after 1 semester. Earlier, her father told them to spend a semester there while he tried to fix everything here. Plus, he can't have those videos out for the world to see. The girls mock her for going on a long vacation at best. A girl grills her for more info, but Huijin replies that it's a family matter. Deep down, she doesn't want them to know that it happened because of that bastard. They ask if Jisoo has dealt with that annoying bastard and her sister. She thinks Jisoo would kill her if she were to tell the truth, so she says that they might have handled it. She tells her friend that before she leaves, she wants to beat Daeyeon once again. Her friend asks her to stop doing it. Just thinking about how that little girl would be over the moon makes her sick. She wants to finish the job before she leaves. She will also get her grandpa fired through her mom. Only then she will be satisfied. She turns to see someone entering the room and her face turns pale immediately. A masked person stands at the doorway. She exclaims what Ijin is doing here. Another girl asks what the shuttle's older brother doing here. He wanted to see what kind of fun they were doing. He's also happy to see everyone from the video here. The girl asks what video he's talking about. He tells about the one in which they filmed beating Daeyeon in this same place. He asks why nobody is singing, since they all like to scream along loud music, so he'll show them too. At the hospital, the father asks Huijin's whereabouts. Jisoo explains that she stepped out to say bye to her friends. He gets agitated about her sneaking out when she's supposed to stay low. His manager comes barging inside the room and switches on the TV. The news reporter tells about the heinous crimes being committed by school students. Dozens of the videos submitted are depicting explicit violence. The civic group and politicians are proposing a special bill to bring the culprits to justice. The culprits are the children of the candidate In-bae Kim. The father can't believe that his name is broadcasting on TV. The scene shifts to Ijin walking back home from the club. He sees Cha waiting for him. He asks why he released those clips when he cut a deal with In-bae. He thought he needed to act quickly and under the radar to protect his identity as he was going against a powerful politician. He strategized that things had to be done quietly and it wouldn't be over even if he got Daeyeon out. He replies that he did what was needed and Cha asks if that's his excuse, inquiring if won't he get in his way. He assures him that this will be the last thing on his mind. The reporter says that multiple records of In-bae Kim's involvement in money, laundering, and election fraud are coming out. The evidence is so conclusive that his fellow party members are voicing against him. In-bae's whole world crashes down and he slumps on the bed. On the other hand, Cha asks how he managed to find his data on In-bae. He kept that data as a safety net if things went south. He asks who is he and Ijin replies that he's an average teenager. Cha tells him there's nothing average about him. The next day at school, students gossip with each other. Some girls look towards Ijin and want to ask him out. As for him, he's sitting in the corner, reflecting on his yesterday's action. Suddenly, his attention diverts to the notification on his phone. He sees that Daeyeon has texted him, telling him to hang out with friends and she can walk home by herself. However, he gets confused by what she means by hanging out with friends as he has never done it before. Soon, Young shows up and greets Ijin. While he takes his seat, he asks if he's busy today. Young says it's fine if he doesn't have time today as he has to walk home with his sister. However, Ijin replies that he's free today. Young exclaims if he's free then they can hang out after school and Ijin agrees. Suddenly, Jake and Hyuk's voices make Young panic. They tell Ijin they heard the news of Jisoo moving abroad and he's the reason behind it. They tell the whole class how much Jisoo's family is now screwed. On hearing it, everyone stares at Ijin in astonishment. However, Ijin explains they heard it wrong, but Jake says there's nothing to hide from them. He knows that he jumped on Jisoo and his goons at their hideout a few days ago. Hyuk exclaims that they all know how he slaughtered them by himself and now he's humiliated to come back to school. He can't stop laughing and says Jisoo deserved it. He asks how badly he beat him that he left the country. Young also thinks that Ijin is extraordinary in fighting. Hyuk is happy to not see Jisoo again. He asks Ijin if he'll celebrate with them after school. Jake also says that he's new to this area and he'll show him some fun places as well. But Ijin declines their offer as he already has plans for today. Both look confused and inquire about his plans. With a smile, he says he'll hang out with Young. Jack bends down and creeps at Young, asking if they could join them as well. Hyuk places his hand on Young's shoulder and says he won't refuse them. After receiving Young's agreement, they leave happily and Ijin asks if he's sure about inviting them. He nervously replies that he's kind of sure. Soon, the teacher enters the classroom and tells everyone to quiet down. A gorgeous girl and a boy follow the teacher into the class. On seeing them, Young can't understand what they are doing here. Ijin doesn't know them, so he asks Young to explain. He says that the girl is Yona Sin and her grandfather owns SW Corporation, the biggest company in Korea. Also, the guy next to her is Seok. He's always been with her since they were little, and he's being trained as her assistant and bodyguard. The teacher says that there won't be a need for an introduction as most people know about them. They have been studying in the US for the past 2 years and will be joining their class today. Hyuk thinks that a new competitor has been added to his list and Jake thinks about staying low till graduation. Young was wondering why there were 2 extra desks in the class, and now he understands it all. He looks at her and thinks she's more prettier in person. The boys look at her admiring, wanting to talk to her even for a moment. Seok follows behind her. He looks at Ijin and finds something peculiar about him. Yona walks past him and glances at him. She asks Seok if he's a celebrity. He replies he isn't sure about it. Also, he wasn't in the evaluation report he received. He assures her that he'll run a background check on him. Ijin looks in her direction and Yona smiles at him. But he quickly turns his head and focuses on studying. This makes her feel sad and thinks about how could he blow off a girl like her. Young asks if there's any place in particular he wants to go to later and he says he's fine with whatever he picks. Out of nowhere, he asks if they should go to a game room. Ijin recalls these words as he heard them before. Turns out it was Major Kang who told him about it. He explains how every teenager is infected with the gaming room and he must know about it. He asks again what it's called and Ijin replies it's the gaming room, sir. Kang explains that the gaming room allows anyone to use a personal computer for a fee. Students and adults can use them alike. Ijin inquires about what people do there and Kang compliments his eagerness. The people use it to watch online videos and play games. In the case of the average high school student, 90% of them play some computer game. He says that he'll introduce him to the most common games. He uses a projector to furiously explain the game mechanics and Ijin listens intensely. After that, he practices intensely while smashing the keyboard. They are playing with other soldiers and one of them complains about losing again. However, Kang tells them it's the map's fault, not his. In the present, Ijin thinks that Major's intel is pretty solid to rely on. Young says they'll have some ramen in the gaming room and go to Kawinka after that. On hearing the word, he remembers Major explaining about it. Kawinka is a karaoke where people can sing along with mere coins. He told him to prepare a few songs just in case, and he'd send a list of songs popular among teens. Ijin thinks deeply about this situation and readies himself for the challenge. Young is confused to see him getting serious about the fun stuff. Soon, school got over and the student leaves. Seok tells Yona that the boy's name is Ijin and he's 18 years old. He's also Daeyeon's older brother. Yona knows Daeyeon and asks if wasn't his grandpa her only family. He says that's right, she's been living with her grandpa since her parents and brother died in a plane crash. What's weird is that her dead brother suddenly came back to life right before their return to school. They need to dig a little deeper into his character. The scene shifts to Ijin walking back home late. His phone buzzes and he checks out the message. His friends discuss about the game they played today. Earlier in the game room, Hyuk can't believe that Young carried them through the whole game. Jake questions if he's really a pro player and Young says he's kind of pro. He asks what his rank is, and when Young says he's at the highest rank, both remain shocked. They hurriedly ask if he's hungry, then they can bring some snacks and a few drinks. After the game room, they discuss today's match. Jake tells Ijin to up his game as Young has to clean up the mess after him. When Ijin reads the message, he gets worried. On his way home, he meets Daeyeon at the local store. He asks about what she's doing here and she replies she came here to buy some garbage bags and a few snacks. He asks her to carry the bag but she tells him it's fine. She further asks if he was hanging out with friends earlier and he replies with a yes. She's happy to see him make friends. When she asks where they went today, he replies game room. She thinks that he might have different interests. He asks her how she's doing at school and she replies she's having a great time there. She inquires if he has eaten dinner yet or had some with his friends. He says he had some and they sold all kinds of food at the game room. He asks if she had dinner yet and she replies not yet. She's waiting for Grandpa to get home so they can eat together. He asks if he can eat with them too. She questions if hasn't he eaten already. However, he says he only ate a little and is hungry again. At home, Grandpa compliments Daeyeon's culinary skills. However, she says that it's just fried eggs and hams, nothing much. But still, she made the soup and it's quite delicious. He asks Ijin if it's good and he likes it as well. All of them share a pleasurable moment and Ijin thinks about how he ate on the battlefield. The rations were already small and sometimes he had to skip the food when they were attacked on a mission. Compared to that, he finds eating with family quite pleasant. Suddenly, his phone rings and he picks it up. The person calling him is Major Kang and he asks how things are going. He says everything's good and Kang asks if anything exciting happened at school. Ijin explains that he beat some goons in the school. Kang's face grows more serious and he asks if he killed somebody. Soldiers behind Kang ask if Ijin already killed someone. However, Ijin replies that he didn't kill anyone. He only ran into some confrontation but it was quickly resolved. Kang says that he doesn't have to worry much, he'll be there if he ever needs him. However, Ijin replies everything is fine and there's nothing for him to worry about. Kang feels relieved and says to call him if he ever needs help and Ijin agrees to it. The next day at school, the trio discusses yesterday's game. Hyuk says that Ijin is bad at games and Jaek agrees to it. Jaek asks if a fight had to break out between Ijin and Seok, who do you think will win? Hyuk says that Ijin is good but he's no match for Seok. That boy has been training in combat since he was a kid. Jaek also agrees to it. Seok is pretty hardcore at fighting. Young asks if it's true that Seok won against 20 dudes alone. However, Hyuk corrects him that instead of 20 there were 30 people. Young asks if he's serious about it. Jake says it's true. Those street thugs were harassing Yona, so he just went there and wiped them out. Initially, there were 10 guys, but more kept coming. In the end, even 30 guys couldn't stop him and he walked out of that situation unscratched. Young is amazed. He asks if he defeated the kidnappers who got Yona and if those people were retired soldiers. Hyuk says that's also true. But in any case, Ijin doesn't stand a chance against Seok. While Ijin is walking to his classroom, he bumps into Seok. Seok asks what is he. However, Ijin doesn't understand what he's trying to say. He asks why he's lying about his identity. He heard that he had a hand in Jishu and Huijin moving abroad. Ijin replies that although they had a disagreement, he has nothing to do with them moving away. Seok asks if he wants to hide his stuff. He reveals that he contacted the school he supposedly attended overseas and found out he never studied there. At the same time, Yona approaches Daeyeon. Yona takes her to an empty room and Daeyeon asks when she came back to Korea. Yona replies that she came a few days ago and started attending the school yesterday. She says she's in her brother's class and didn't know that she had a brother. Daeyeon explains that she too thought that her brother died in the crash with her parents 10 years ago, but it turns out that he survived it. They came to know that he was still alive about 6 months ago. One day she returned home and saw Grandpa standing still with the phone in his hands. With tears flowing from his eyes, he said that her brother Ijin is alive. Yona asks if he was alive all those years, then why didn't he reach out to them? She explains that he lost his memory in the crash and only began to remember things recently. Also, someone helped him to get in touch with us. Yona finds this suspicious and asks how much her brother remembers. She says it's just a faint memory of having a grandpa and a younger sister. Yona believes that something is hidden about his past. However, she doesn't tell Daeyeon and asks if her grandpa was happy. She replies that he was happy, so much that he cried for hours after the phone call. Then he took time off work and joined cooking classes. He wanted to cook better Korean food as Ijin was returning home. Yona, with a concerned voice, asks if she's sure that he's her brother. Happy Daeyeon doesn't understand what she means. Yona asks if she checked everything about him and she replies they took DNA tests. Grandpa says he still looks the same when he was little. Yona thinks if they did a DNA test, then maybe it's not fake. Daeyeon asks why she keeps asking about her brother. Yona doesn't know what she should say, so she blurts out if he has a girlfriend. In the hallway, Ijin asks about what he's trying to point out here. Seok inquires why he forged his identity as if he wanted to come to this school. He asks if he means that his records are fake. He replies that must be the case. According to his research, he never lived in that city. Plus, the school never heard of him. Ijin asks for the proof, since he claims that his records are fake, so he wants to know if he has proof to back it up. Seok thinks that he found his lie by digging around the people connected to the school. Although he doesn't have any tangible proof, he's positive about it. Also, he doesn't seem startled at this. He hasn't flinched at all, and that makes him look like a bad guy. Ijin asks why he's running a background check on him, and Seok replies that can't just sit around when a suspicious kid like him could be a threat. Ijin sighs and says that the reason he's coming to this school is because he came back home. Seok thinks that he's sure that his records are forged, and it won't take long to find out. Soon, the classes begin and students attend the boring lectures. Ijin, while sitting in a corner, thinks that Seok transferred here yesterday, and he managed to find all that information in less than a day. After the classes, Jack tells Young to meet him in the gaming room later and they'll rank up their clan. Hyuk asks Ijin if he'll come today. However, Ijin declines the request as today is his grandpa's birthday. Hyuk says that it's fine and they will hang out by themselves. On the other hand, Seok tells Yona that Ijin has forged records to come to this school. They can't rule out if the DNA test was tampered as well. There's one more thing he found out about Dae. She was severely bullied by Jisoo and his sister for 2 years. When Yona asks how bad it was, he replies so bad that it makes him wonder how she stayed in school. Yona thinks about what's wrong with kids these days. Seok continues that her getting bullied is the reason Ijin made his move. Jisoo and his goons were ambushed by Ijin twice. Yona finds it assuring that her long-gone brother comes back from the dead and wiped out her bullies, but her brother and sister only try to get rid of her. She says that something doesn't add up. If Ijin was targeting her, then he would have been better if he kept a low profile. She wonders if he wants something with Daeyeon and her grandpa. She inquires about the insurance money from the plane crash. Seok replies that since her grandpa didn't touch it, so it had grown a lot, but they can't rule out the possibility that Ijin is after it. She wonders that Daeyeon might be in danger if he is living with them. The scene shifts to Ijin and Daeyeon shopping. Daeyeon says she wants to ask a question and hopes it won't upset him much. She asks what his life was like after the crash. When she sees Ijin lost in deep thought, she tells him it's fine if he doesn't want to answer it. However, he assures her that it's okay. When he woke up, he was pretty traumatized and couldn't really think straight. He did whatever he could to survive in a place where he didn't speak the same language. He imagines dealing with multiple hostiles on the battlefield, but Daeyeon doesn't know he was a mercenary, so in the end he stayed pretty busy. She asks if he was too busy to have a girlfriend, and he replies yes. She talks about Yona being in his class. She was surprised when she heard about it. Ijin inquires if she knows her. She replies that before moving to the US they talked with each other, and now she has come back. It makes her happy. Also, she asked if you have a girlfriend, and this stuns him. Back at home, they bring a cake for Grandpa. They also brought him a gift, and he says they shouldn't have done so much for him. However, she tells him not to worry and the gift isn't too expensive. For him, the greatest gift is that Ijin returned back home safe and sound. Suddenly, Daeyeon's phone rings and she goes to check it. The caller is Yona and they talk for a while. After hanging up, she tells Grandpa that she's going to the convenience store for a bit and he asks her reason for going this late. She replies that her friend, Yona, has come by for a quick chat and she'll be back soon. After the dinner, Ijin goes back to his room. He searches for SW Corporation on his computer. He wonders why they are looking into him and running background checks. He remembers the conversation he had with Seok earlier. His thoughts get interrupted when his grandpa calls out to him. He says that he's going out for a minute. Ijin asks if he's going because of Daeyeon. Grandpa strokes his head and says that is one reason. He also wants to get some fresh air as well. However, Ijin tells him to stay put and he'll go instead. He has work early in the morning and he needs something from the store anyway, so he'll walk home with Daeyeon. Grandpa asks if he needs some money, but he tells him that he already has it. Before he leaves, Grandpa tells him to stay safe. At the convenience store, the girls talk about life in the US and Korea. She asks Daeyeon if she's interested in studying abroad. A lot of kids their age are interested as well. However, she has never considered it before. When Yona asks for the reason, she replies that it costs a lot and she would be away from her family. She doesn't want Grandpa to be alone as he's not in the best of health these days, but still having a brother helps her feel better. Yona wonders how could she tell her the reason for being here. Before meeting Daeyeon, Seok told Yona that he testified from an employee of the school that Ijin never attended there. He showed him the photo and he denied it. On hearing the truth, she tells him to come with her. When he asks where they are going, she tells him they are meeting with Daeyeon now. He says that although Ijin's record is forged, they still can't confirm if he's her real brother. She says that he's missing a record of a decade and he's living with her right now. She is worried about her safety and can't stay quiet. Daeyeon has the right to know about this. However, Yona can't bring herself to tell about him. Every time she mentions his name, she keeps smiling. Daeyeon says that talking to her for this long is quite a pleasure. Soon after, Ijin arrives at the store. However, Seok blocks him from going further. Ijin steps aside and tries to walk past him, but Seok tells him to wait here. He thinks that he's here because they might tell Daeyeon the truth. This is why he didn't want to go through this trouble. Still, they need to let her know about him. He tells Ijin they need time to catch up a bit, so he should give them a minute. Suddenly, they hear a vehicle approaching them and they look towards it. The car goes past them and it sends them flying on the ground. Ijin's head hits the ground and it bleeds profusely. Both of them stagger to get up. Ijin is barely able to get himself together. When he sees two people kidnapping the girls, he immediately gets up and rushes to the car. However, the vehicle drives away and both of them pant heavily in the alley. They grab each other's shirts, demanding an answer for the sudden kidnapping. Ijin asks about his best guess. Seok also asks him the same and thinks he's not the one behind this. When they come to terms that neither of them knows the kidnappers, they let go of each other's shirts. Seok tells the security that Yona has been kidnapped and he wants them to track their route through surveillance footage. The vehicle is a minivan and the license plate was covered. After the call, he sees Ijin going somewhere and asks what he's up to. He demands an answer if he has anything to do with this. However, Ijin tells him he doesn't have time for this. Seok says SW security is on them and they'll find them soon. Until then he has to stay with him. Ijin tells him that he can go and look for Yona with his team. He'll find his sister on his own. It's up to him if he wants to follow him or not. Ijin starts leaving, but he turns around and asks if he brought a car with him. At the same time, Sha is relaxing in his club while having a cigarette. His minion comes in and says that the kid's here to see him. When asked which kid, he saw Ijin standing in front of him. At the same time, a woman is sitting in her office with a report in her hands. A guard comes into the room and she asks what's so urgent about him coming here. He tells her that Miss Yona has been kidnapped. She asks again if it's Yona. When he confirms it, she smiles and thinks that the rumors are true. She asks if grandfather will continue to pursue that deal, but he's uncertain of it. She hopes that he doesn't give in to the threats and just pushes on. That way Yona will die. Back at the club, Cha stops smoking and looks at the kid. Seok thinks Cha is flagged in their database as a criminal. He can't understand how Ijin knows him. Cha asks him the reason for coming here and he replies that he wants some intel. While putting on the next cigarette, he asks if he's joking. However, his face turns pale when Ijin tells him that the granddaughter of SW Corporation has been kidnapped. He tells him that it's not them. They don't deal in stuff like that. Messing with SW would be similar to having a death wish. He asks if he has any leads either. Cha says he has no reason to help him, especially when he's stuck in this shitstorm thanks to him. He says that his younger sister was taken with her. Cha becomes serious on hearing this and tells him about some idiots asking around for an untraceable warehouse. They also asked for burner cars and a few extra helping hands. The offer was hard for him to resist, but he turned them down. Things like that doesn't wash off easily. All he knows is that some other crew took the bait, and they are the reason behind it. Ijin thanks him for the info and begins to leave. However, Cha stops him and tosses his phone to him. He tells him to save his number in there. Ijin glares at him, pondering the reasons for it. Cha clears his doubt by saying he only needs it to tell him any further leads he gets, and Ijin promptly saves his number. He asks if the bike outside is his, and soon after he takes it with him. He tells Suk to get there while he goes with this bike. He asks if he's going to chase down a weak lead like that. He explains that Yona will most likely be safe until they get what they want, but the same can't be said for Daeyeon. Seok thinks that judging by how he came here straight for a lead, he's quick and he can't figure him out. Seok says that he has relayed the information to the security team and he'll follow him behind in his car. Ijin puts on the helmet and says he can do as he wishes. He steps up the vehicle and starts chasing the lead. On the other side, Daeyeon wakes up and sees Yona and herself tied up. Yona apologizes for getting her dragged into this because of her. In the last conscious scene, Daeyeon remembers that some men in black came towards them. She figures it out and asks if they have been kidnapped, and Yona agrees to it. She thought this wouldn't happen as soon as he got back to Korea. This was also one of the reasons why she didn't want to see her. The kidnapper says that they are finally awake now. Yona asks why they kidnapped her. The man replies it's none of her business and she should stay quiet like a good girl. She thinks that he's using her against Grandpa and SW. The other men asks what they should do with the other girl. They brought her because they were together. He tells him to get rid of her as she's useless to them. However, Yona intervenes and says she won't let them her in any way. The man asks if that's the case, then what will she do about it? She says she'll bite her tongue and bleed to death, and they won't get what they want. The man tells her to give it a shot. He says a girl like her won't sacrifice herself to save someone else. So Yona bites her tongue and her mouth bleeds. The man says this small spectacle has brought her some time. The other men asks what they should do now, and he replies they could get rid of the other girl later on. He also tells them to stuff their mouths so they can't speak. Soon, Ijin reaches the warehouse, followed by Seok reaching there after him. Seok inquires if this is the one. Ijin replies that Cha sent him this address, so this must be it. Seok says that his lead wasn't half bad. He has informed the SW security and they will get here soon. However, Ijin just goes in there alone. Seok tells him to wait here while the backup arrives. Ijin explains that although Yona is safe, Daeyeon doesn't have much time. Near the warehouse, a few men patrol the area. One of them walks in a dark area and Ijin grabs him from behind. He starts tightening his grip and the man begins losing consciousness. He drags him to the pile of other unconscious men. Seok also handles another one and thinks Ijin is beyond skilled in neutralizing opponents in silence. He asks who is he truly, and he replies that he's just a guy in his class. At the SW Corporation, the grandfather is looking outside. The guard tells him that the kidnappers have made their demand. They want SW terminate the recent contract. We are supposed to respond in 1 hour, and if we refuse, they'll kill Yona. When he asks about the security detail, he says they'll reach Yona's location within 50 minutes. On hearing it, the stress on him grows. Back at the warehouse, a man smokes a cigarette while complaining about doing other people's work. The other man says it's none of their business and should do as they are told. Suddenly, the man gets smacked from behind and he falls to the ground. He gets up to see who did this to him, but he sees that a kid has knocked out the other man. Ijin glares at him and kicks him in the face. Ijin asks how many people did he get, and he replies that he took down 5 men. Ijin says that they beat 14 in total, which means they're not short of men or resources. Seok thinks he dealt with 9 while he was fighting 5 men. Ijin asks Seok for the culprit behind this, but he doesn't know about it. He explains that these things happen every once in a while. They had a similar incident when they were in America. He grits his teeth in anger as he never expected such things to happen so soon after their return. Ijin says that the wire puller must be with Yona. He explains that someone schemed to kidnap Yona as these thugs aren't capable enough to pull something like this. He asks Seok if he would be alright, as things will get tougher now. Ijin says he hurt himself pretty badly when the van ran them over. He tells him not to worry as he too has an injured leg. They hear some distant voice about some men complaining where others are. The other one says those bastards are slacking again. One of them reaches the corner and sees knocked men. Suddenly, Ijin comes out of the corner and knees him in the face. He grabs the second man's hand while he tries to attack him. He kicks him in the knee and punches his head. They deal with the men, and he suggests moving separately from here as they might have heard these noises. Seok says that once they are done with this, he'll give him an official apology. The men inside wonder what's going on outside. The leader orders them to check it out. Outside, Ijin is running at full speed and he stops at a corner when someone shouts at him. A man says that he's just a little kid. The masked man thinks that he's not Seok, then what's that kid doing here? Ijin looks at them and believes these are the men running the scheme. The masked person says it doesn't matter, they'll beat this kid here. He tells his other boys to get the kid. At the same time, Seok enters the warehouse through a window. He quickly maneuvers his way through the building and finds the girl tied. He looks around and sees no one present there. He deduces that maybe all of them went after Ijin. He cautiously sneaks to them and removes their gag. Yona asks if the team reached here, but Seok tells her they are on their way. She inquires how he knew where to find them. A person from behind says so the security team won't be here for a while, and Seok faces them. The man says that he must be the famous Seok from SW. He heard a lot about him. He has been a nuisance for them, always lurking around Yona and getting in their way. He doesn't know how he managed to find them this quickly, but coming without his security is his biggest mistake. His lackey rushes at him and they start fighting each other. They start exchanging blows with each other and Seok is having a tough time. He thinks that these people aren't the ones they just defeated outside. Seok jabs at him first and closes the gap rapidly. He punches him in the guts and kicks him as well. He holds the man down as he desperately tries to free himself. The leader knew that he is trained from an early age, but watching him is even more impressive. However, they are not in some sparring match right now. The lackey he was fighting slashes him with a knife at various points. The leader asks why he looked so surprised. Did he think they would fight him empty-handed? He says this is why dealing with boys like him is much easier. He tells his men to make quick work of him as they have to move camp before the security arrives. Seok tries his best to deal with the continuous knife onslaught. He thinks that the first strike was too deep, and now he's having trouble moving correctly. The leader brings out his knife and thinks about killing the girl right now. He sets his target to be Daeyeon and throws his knife. But Yona intervenes, trying to save her life. However, Seok stands in front of them and takes the hit on himself. The knife hits him deep, and he struggles in pain. The leader says now he has to see another pitiful drama. He orders his lackey to leave Yona and kill the other two. When the man approaches them, Ijin comes through the door and stands in front of them. He defeated all the men that came towards him, and now he has come to rescue them. The scene shifts to the club. Cha's man informs him that the Goseong cartel is behind this one, but they don't seem to know what they're getting into. Cha says those fools never ask questions before taking a job. His subordinate asks about why he helped that teenager. He puts you in a tight spot as he released all the dirt they have been saving on Congressman In-bae all these years. Cha sighs and says that he's just a weak old man who couldn't even take on a kid. He tells him not to go for revenge as they are the ones who messed with him in the first place. His subordinate says he doesn't have a reason to help him either. Cha chuckles and says what else could he do when the poor kid's sister got kidnapped, and his subordinate agrees to it. Back at the warehouse, Ijin came in and the leader was stunned to see another kid coming here. Daeyeon and Yona also look at him worriedly. The leader asks about who he is. On seeing Ijin here, Daeyeon screams about what her brother is doing here. On hearing that this boy is her brother, the man laughs. He can't believe that the brother came looking for the kidnapped sister. Ijin ignores the man and asks Daeyeon if she's hurt. But Daeyeon screams at him to get out now as it's dangerous. Yona thinks that because of her, these two innocent people are put at risk. Yona says since the man only needs her, he should let go of the others. She'll come without a fight and cooperate as well. The man replies that he's in no mode for doing favors for her. Seok looks at Ijin and thinks that even in a situation like this, he hasn't flinched at all. The leader tells his man to kill the boy first. The lackey approaches Ijin with a knife in the hand. He swings at him and Ijin blocks it with his hand. He grabs the person's hand and stabs the knife into him. Everyone looks stunned. He tells Daeyeon to close her eyes. Once she closes her eyes, he makes a quick work of the men, slashing him at various points. He renders his arm useless to combat, and the man screams like hell. Yona thinks about what just happened now. Seok knows that Ijin is not just swinging the knife. He severed the guy's muscles and ligaments to neutralize him. The leader is stunned as well. He says that he's more like a bodyguard than a brother. Ijin walks towards him with the knife in his hand. The man says that a normal kid of his age couldn't use a knife like that. Also, he has a cold look in his eyes. He says that it won't matter anyway, as he'll kill him soon. The man makes the first swing and Ijin ducks under it. He follows it up with another swing, but Ijin blocks it and prepares his knife to thrust into him. The man, sensing the danger, steps back. The man attacks again and Ijin blocks it. However, this time Ijin spins the knife fast and cuts the man deep in his hand. The man can't believe that he lost to this boy in a knife fight. He lunges forward, making another stab attempt, but Ijin grabs a hold of his hand and slashes it. He follows the attack with a punch in the face and the man staggers back while covering his face. The man says he has enough games and reaches out for his pistol. Seok sees the gun and worries about Ijin's safety. The man points his gun and says he's dead now. However, Ijin throws the knife at lightning speed and it hits his arm. Ijin rushes forward and delivers a serious blow to his face. He sends the man to the ground. Both Yona and Seok can't believe what they just witnessed. Ijin looks at them and they shudder in fear. He goes to Daeyeon and tells her she can open her eyes now. He smiles at her and says he's here to take her back home. She reaches out for his face and asks if he's okay as he's bleeding. Ijin assures her that he's fine and there's no need to worry. Suddenly she starts crying and he worriedly asks if she's hurt. Yona looks amazed at seeing such a lovely brother-sister relationship. The scene then shifts to the hospital and Ijin is waiting on his seat. Some female patient glances at him and talk about his looks. Ijin gets a message and he checks it. Jake inquires why he isn't at school today. They discuss the game they played yesterday and he smiles on reading it. Back at the warehouse, the security team showed up soon after. They handcuffed the unconscious man lying on the ground. The doctor checks on Daeyeon and Ijin and waits for it to complete. Yona tells him to take her to the hospital for a proper checkup and she has arranged everything. They should take her as she might have internal injuries. She tells him that this incident could be traumatic for her as she also had one before involving Jisoo and Huijin. In the present, he remembers Yona explaining that Daeyeon might be having a tough time and that talking to her would make her feel good. She comes out after the checkup and asks if he has been waiting here for long, but he replies he only finished a few minutes ago. He asks about what the doctor said and she replies there's nothing to worry about. She asks how his checkup went and the doctor said that he's fine except for a few light bruises. She is thankful that nothing serious happened to him. He looks at her and thinks about yesterday's incident. She screamed at him to get out, and he ponders how much pain she had to go through. Daeon was about to ask him how he was so good with the knife but stops herself from inquiring further. Back at the warehouse, the soldiers discuss how a kid wiped out most kidnappers by himself. It doesn't make sense to them how a boy the same age as Yona could pull off such feats. Daeon wondered how her brother was able to fight so well. She wanted to know what kind of life he lived before coming back to Korea. At the hospital, Yona approaches Daeon. She asks if she completed her checkup and how it went. She replies it was good and says there was no need for that. But Yona says doing much was her responsibility as she dragged her into this mess. She apologizes again, but Daeon tells her she has apologized many times and shouldn't feel guilty. The guard behind Yona stares at Ijin as if he wants to know how he pulled such feats yesterday. Yona asks Ijin if he had a checkup and he replies yes. Daeon explains that it was hard for her to get him through it. He only agreed when she threatened that she wouldn't get one until he did. She asks if Seok is in the hospital and is doing fine. When she knows that he's here, she asks Ijin to visit him together before leaving. Ijin agrees and they go to his room. Seok is covered in bandages and he looks surprised at them coming over to him. Daeon thanks him for rescuing them yesterday and apologizes for the same. He replies that it's okay. She worriedly asks if he's doing fine and he says he's good. They eat some snacks and talk for a while. Before leaving, Daeon wishes him a fast recovery and Yona waves them goodbye. Once they have left, the guard asks if he is the boy they run through the database. Also, he was with him through this ordeal. He can't figure out something about that kid. Yona asks what's interesting about him and he explains that he neutralized multiple men. She replies that she was amazed herself, but she didn't know that something like that would surprise an expert like him. He explains that those men he defeated were highly trained. He also neutralized more than 10 men quickly and quietly. That's no easy task for any professional to accomplish alone. But what's interesting is he didn't kill any one of them, he rendered them unfit for combat. Also, judging by the cuts on the two inside the cargo, his knife skills are at an extraordinary level. These men aren't normal thugs but retired soldiers. After getting the report, he believes that Ijin is a highly trained professional with lots of combat experience. Hearing the guards speak highly of Ijin, both of them remain stunned. After the checkup, Ijin and Daeon are walking home. Daeon thanks him for saving her yesterday and says she keeps needing his help. However, Ijin tells her that he should be the one thanking her. She asks why is he thanking her and he replies he now knows what these feelings are like. The feeling that somebody put his safety above their own without any calculation. He never experienced that before coming to this country. He now understands what family feels like.